I'm getting my Hermit on. Hello and welcome back to Tarot Tuesday. Today we are talking about the Hermit. Now this card is number 9 in the major arcana, but it is the 10th card because remember the Fool is 0. What I love about this card is how simple the artwork is, but how much this card has to tell us. So remember, the major arcana tells the story of the Fool's journey, where at the 0, when the Fool is starting out, he's very carefree, experiencing life. By the end, by the world, he's done his journey, he's gained all of this knowledge and awareness. So at the 9, we're close to the middle of the journey, but here what you see is a very different character than what you saw with the Fool. Now looking closely at the Hermit card, let's look at what the artwork looks like. And again, I use the Rider-Waite art, which is the most commonly accepted and understood for the meaning of the tarot cards. So if we look at the Hermit, what you see is what looks like an older man. He's got a nice long beard. He's wearing robes. He's got his hood on. He's standing at what looks like the top of snow-capped mountains, so you can tell he's climbed very high. He's got a staff with him, a walking stick to kind of help him on his path, and he's holding a lantern to light his way, which has a 6-pointed star within it. The art looks really, really simple, but if we break it down, you'll see how complex this story is. If you look it up in a dictionary, you will see that the definition of hermit is a person living in solitude as a religious discipline, or any person living in solitude or seeking to do so. And that's exactly what this man in this card is doing. The Hermit is our Fool, where he's at a point in his journey where he recognizes and accepts that he needs to have time alone to understand where he's been and where he's going. So seeking solitude is an important part of the journey for self-awareness, self-discovery, and a greater spiritual understanding of self. Now, if we look closer again, he's got this lantern in his hand, and in the lantern is the 6-sided star. The 6-sided star is known as the Seal of Solomon, which is a sign for wisdom. So he's lighting his way with the wisdom that he's gained along the way. What is fascinating about the Hermit as well is if you compare him to the Fool. So if we pull out the Fool card and we set them side to side, you can see they are really, really similar in design, but very, very different in tone. The Fool shows a young man looking up in the sky. He's carrying his belongings behind him. He is on the edge of a cliff and he's not watching where he's going. If you look at the Hermit, that stick is now his walking stick, used to guide him, used to help him maintain his footing. Instead of looking up to the sky, he's looking down at the ground. He's watching where he's going. But here again, the Fool has the sun to light his way. He can see everything, whereas the Hermit can't see very much at all because it's dark and he's just got his lantern. So the Hermit really needs to take care and recognize that the important thing on his journey is just placing one foot in front of the next, and maybe not necessarily knowing the entire path that's laid out in front of him, but definitely knowing exactly where to take the next step so he can see just as much as he needs to. Here as well, you see that the Hermit is standing atop these mountains, which were behind the Fool. So the Fool had not yet climbed this mountain range. The Fool had not yet had to be faced with these obstacles. Now as the Hermit, our character here is at the top of the mountain. He has gone through a lot. So he's taking a moment to rest, reflect, and take in what he needs to keep for the remainder of his journey. So even though it seems like a dark, cold, lonely place, the Hermit is actually quite content in where he is. And as he's looking down, again, it's another symbol that he's reached the top of the peak and now he's going to be heading down the peak. The hard work is behind him. So the Hermit, like I said, it's simple artwork, and you may be tempted in the interpretation of this just to use the dictionary definition of what a hermit is, but if you really look at and break down the symbols, you can see that there's a lot more to it, especially if you look at it in relation to the journey related to the Fool particularly. You can see how far we've come. So when the Hermit comes up in a reading, I implore you to look deeper, to use these symbols to your advantage, and really see how this reflects with your client's need in that moment. If you read reversals, again, I don't, but if you do, Then you can look at the more negative aspects of what you think of when you think of a hermit, which is loneliness, withdrawal, isolation. Right side up, the hermit is very much about using that solitude as part of a positive growth, whereas reversed, that solitude is really about withdrawing from the task at hand. And so there may need to be a little bit more engagement that has to happen. So I hope you've enjoyed this Tarot Tuesday. I'm going to go back to being my hermity self, and we will see you next week. And hey, for you on YouTube, feel free to give this video a subscribe and a like. I do these videos every week, and I'm really excited to bring more content to you. So as long as you get those reminders, you're never going to miss anything. And feel free to comment below what you want to hear in these videos. Take care.